All right, thank you so much for sticking with us. This is still Good Morning Kenya. My name is Aguko. It's a pleasure being with you on this fine Monday morning. And if at all you've just joined us, you're in time for the next conversation of the day. And we want to talk about a very sensitive yet delicate matter in the country as we speak. Matters concerning marriage, divorce, and inheritance. You can be part of this conversation and let us know what you think about these particular matters. Remember, we have the Supreme Court of Kenya ruling that we shall be discussing in a bit concerning matters on divorce and division of property. We shall be taking a look at that in a bit. Do you believe in marriage? Do you believe in divorce? Today, helping us in this conversation, to my far right, I'm with Pastor Julius Kimani. Next to him, I'm with the Clarice Mmbone Osore, an advocate. And next to her is Sheikh Dr. Hassan Kinyua. Karibuni sana.
Hassan.
And of course, we just want to get straight to this particular matter. We will divide this conversation into two different aspects. One, divorce, and then two, we'll talk about matters concerning inheritance and division of property. We shall be tackling that. First things first, matters concerning divorce. And I'd like to start with you, Pastor Julius. Do you believe divorce is a solution for marital problems or marital differences?
I will say one thing. When from the foundation, when God created man, his intention was not for man to separate, because as the word says, two become one flesh. And when it talks about one flesh, it is not actually me and the woman, but the product of what comes out, the children. Now, children can never divorce their parents. A father and a mother can divorce. But now, when the children come into the picture, they bring in the aspect of the oneness of that particular marriage. Now, when divorce happens, then you are creating something that can be impossible. This child sometimes is forced to choose who they want to go with. And that becomes very, very difficult. Now, amazingly, when you look at something like divorce, it has been seen to affect even people all the way to adulthood. So the original intention was divorce not to be there. But when, of course, human beings change, so there comes a moment where divorce becomes necessary. And in the Christian context, divorce becomes necessary when somebody moves out and commits adultery. The second part is when now, of course, now the person dies. There is a third aspect where somebody cannot provide for the family. He has decided, I'm not providing, I'm not providing, I'm not providing. Then the Bible says this man is worse than an infidel.
So is divorce, in your view,
yes,
an alternative solution to some of these marital problems?
I would say,
I will ask.
Yeah, it's good.
Still.
I will define it in two ways.
Okay.
You know, sometimes I look at have you given it all? Have you given it all? That is a question. Because have you given it all? You know, I sometimes look at men, especially wanaume sisi. When we have a car, sometimes you find very old cars on the road. Gari mekataa kwenda, but the man will give it all until that car works. Now the question is, yes, a time comes when it may be the solution to that marital conflict. Unaona hii watu watauana, but I think it has to be tried the best.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Let me come to you, Sheikh, and then I come to you, Clarice, Daktari, on that particular matter. And then you will tell us about the legal, procedures of divorce. From where you sit as a religious leader, yes, do you agree with him in regards to that particular matter? And from your perspective, is divorce something that you can encourage to a particular point?
Thank you so much, Brother Aguko, for this question. I will speak now as a marriage officer because I'm a licensed marriage officer by the government of Kenya. And when you go back to Islam, Islam tells us that فَإِمْسَاكُمْ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ تَسْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ, that when you are marrying each other, فَإِمْسَاكُمْ بِمَعْرُوفٍ, then hold to each other in righteousness. أَوْ تَسْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ, and if there is a reason for you to depart, then it should also be on the best way possible. So in Islam, divorce is one of the solutions to marriages, which actually some of them can be detrimental, some of them can be very affect us if they are not looked at, and some of the marriages can cause a lot of harm, especially many times to the wife. So when such situations arise, as he has said, the issue of adultery, and sometimes also there are some conditions which men might have, or even the woman might have, and you cannot solve them. At that particular time, it's good to part ways than to stay together, because if they stay together, then you can even find others killing each other, others cutting the body parts of others. So at that particular time, then it is better to tell your wife or your husband, at this time, I beg that we part ways, but in the best way possible.
Now, the reason why I'm asking that is because I want us to put a disclaimer that this discussion isn't just for anybody. Let's agree, ladies and gentlemen. This discussion isn't just for anybody. This is for those who have tried their best. They have done their best. They have done what it takes. You mentioned that.
Yes.
You've done what is necessary. And it has gone to a point where this is either a matter of life and death. It's a matter of your mental health. It's a matter of your future. So divorce is the way. And it is recommended by the church that you divorce, and also by the religious leaders, even Muslim.
That's true.
Because there are those scenarios that they have said now, itabidi mwachane. This is a discussion for those particular group of people, not people who are saying
who are saying that they can still try a little bit.
Yeah. I heard of a story of somebody who said that I don't like bald men, and I've never loved bald men, and I married this man. He had a lot of hair, but my goodness, over time, age hit this person, and now the hair is falling off. I need to divorce him. This is not for that group of people.
No.
Maybe Pastor could confirm to us if there's ever a chance when the church tells you now you should divorce.
Yes, you've said that there's
no, I've said that.
What the church discourages.
No, of course, you know one thing we say, and we stand from the book of Malachi. The Bible says God hates divorce. He doesn't hate the divorcee. But he hates the acts of divorce because, as he has said, number one, it violates the biggest challenge. It violates the children. Do you know, according to research done in the US, in the prisons in the US, 90% of men in prison in the US, either for murder, for rape, for violence, fatherlessness. There was no father. And this is a secular research that says father is key. So, and you find most of these children who have gone that direction is because divorce has happened. Our children learn from what they see. We're actually the models.
Yeah.
Actually, the way you behave, the way he behaves, the way he behaves, the way she behaves, most of it will be from what you saw your father and your mother do. So that is why we are saying divorce is only a solution when there is threat to life.
Yes.
There is also adultery, because adultery, I think, is one of the biggest violations. You have committed to go to one direction, then suddenly unasikia jamaa ako huko nje anakuambia nimepata kengine.
And in other words, we are saying that this is a conversation for those who are saying that divorce is the only way. This is the way out. The church has agreed, and the Muslim community has also agreed that this is now the way. And that is what we want to talk about right this minute. I want us to take a short break, and then we'll be back with the laws around divorce, the procedures of divorce, and then we find out what is the role of the church and, of course, our religious leaders when it comes to now following these religious processes. You've said that now imebidi wachane. Does the church still play a role in this particular area? I want us to take a break, and then we'll be back with more right here on Good Morning Kenya. Welcome back. We continue with this morning conversation, and it's all about matters concerning marriage, divorce, and inheritance. And we've laid the foundation, and I would like to come to you, Clarice. What are the laws pertaining divorce in terms of, let's start first of all by going through that process, starting that process of filing for divorce.
We have the Marriage Act 2014 that provides for laws concerning marriage and divorce. And we have several regimes of law that provide for divorce. So we can have the marriage under the Islamic laws, marriage under the civil laws, where we go to the Registrar of Marriages. We have customary laws, customary marriage, and marriage under the Hindu laws. So each of these laws have different requirements upon marriage and upon divorce. But one thing is constant: there has to be consent. People have to be of sound mind and agree that this is what we want. There has to be a ceremony. There have to be witnesses, and all these other factors that make a marriage.
Okay.
So now when we come to divorce, you approach a lawyer, you prepare a petition, and you file. It can be contested. Most of the time people do not contest divorces, because by the time one party files, the other party already knows. There's really nothing to contest. The court will not force you to live with someone that you can clearly show you cannot live with in a healthy environment. Yes.
And is there a particular timeline for filing for a divorce? Is there a duration with which you are not allowed to file for one?
The Marriage Act provided that civil marriages, you have to wait for 3 years after celebration of the marriage. But we find a way. We used to do an application to show why we parties cannot proceed with the marriage before 3 years cannot proceed with the marriage beyond 3 years. So you file for divorce. But there is case law that allows parties to file for divorce. So right now you can file for divorce under the civil marriages at any point. I believe the same applies for Christian marriages. I would not know about Sharia law. Perhaps my brother could give us information on that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
But concluding a divorce could take you 3 months to 1 year, depending on your lawyer, depending on the parties. Sometimes parties reconcile mid-hearing. So it really depends with the parties involved.
All right.
Yeah.
According to the Sharia laws in regards to divorce, what are they?
There are many rules as per Islamic Sharia on divorce. But the first thing we always tell people, one is that we are told by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, abghadul halali ilallahi at-talaq, that the most hateful of all halal things before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is divorce. Allah does not like divorce, though he gives permission to it. Now when it comes to divorce, number one of the laws which are accepted by all Muslims globally is that divorce can be 3 times. One, before one goes to divorce, they must seek solution between the two couples. Then if they cannot solve the issue, then they have to include a party from the husband's side, a party from the wife's side. They're the ones to appoint their own parties, but it's good if they come from the family.
Okay.
If that does not happen, then they go outside. Then when it happens and there's no solution, then they give the first divorce. That's why in Islam, divorce is 3 times. You can divorce a lady only 3 times. If you divorce the first time, you have to stay for at least 3 months to make sure that the lady is not pregnant. And after 3 months, if you have not reconciled, then that divorce has already passed. So it means that's a divorce.
Oh, those are 3 stages.
There are 3 stages to reach to the divorce. Then there are 3 types of divorce.
Okay.
The first one, the second one, and the third one.
All right.
When you divorce a lady, the first one, you can return to her in a very normal manner, where you just go before the 3 months, then you can just reconcile and go back together. But if the 3 months pass, then you must marry her again, but in a very easy way. If you now return back to each other, you divorce her for the second time, then you must be very careful, because when you marry, you divorce the wife for the 3rd time, you cannot marry her till she get married to someone else and she divorce. without you influencing the divorce, then at that particular time, you might go back to her. That is Islamic law.
Ram, with your permission, if I may seek some clarification. In the event the lady is pregnant within the 3 months of the first divorce, what happens in that case?
Thank you so much. That's a very important question.
I think that is also considered as reconciliation or something.
As a result of a pregnancy?
In fact, if in the 3rd month the lady realizes that she's pregnant, then the divorce has not happened till she gives birth. Either the husband, because of the mercy of the child, reconciles with her, but if that doesn't happen, then the husband must take care of this lady till she gives birth. Then at the day of the birth, that's when now the divorce has passed.
Now, because of the interest of time, there's a lot we can touch on here. Because of the interest of time, let me come to you, Pastor Julius. The church also plays a key role when it comes to reconciliation. In the scenario where couples have agreed that they are going to file for divorce, and the church has established that these two people cannot stay together, do you help them? Do you see them through the processes and the court proceedings? Do you play a role in divorce cases?
I believe one of the key things that is supposed to happen in any situation, as he has mentioned, is of course you seek for reconciliation. As much as you can, you try to help the couple through the processes of where they can reconcile. But if they have reached a place where they have to go part their ways, it's very important to seek for their spiritual healing. Because of course divorce causes wounds, it causes emotional turmoil, and especially the areas where they are neglected most are the children. Because sometimes we look at the aspect of healing the wounds of the man and the woman, but we forget the children. Now, the church takes the role of counseling. But sometimes you find, especially when matters come to marriage, there is a lot of where there has to be the willingness of the parties to accept the counseling. Because
do you counsel them to reconcile, or do you counsel them to separate?
Now, you'll never sit. Like, for example, as a pastor, I will never sit down to recommend people to divorce. Because we stand on the word that says, what God has put together, no man has the ability to separate.
Regardless of the examples you gave of life and death, of adultery.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it has to be them. It is not me as a pastor to sit down and say, now, go your separate way. They have to sit down and analyze the whole situation. And if they agree to go their separate way, my work now is a pastor, it is number one to create a reconciliation with this person with God. Because one of the greatest challenges what we find as a counselor, I'm also a counselor, I have a doctorate in counseling psychology. Now the greatest challenge we find with people who have divorced is the aspect of carrying the weight of sin. They are like, I feel like I have sinned. Most of them you find, even in the churches they go, they may not be accepted in some areas. For example, they may not serve, for example, in praise and worship. They may not serve in some certain areas of the boards simply because they are divorced. And that can put a lot of emotional weight on these two. So the church works on reconciling this person to accept that they are still accepted by God.
Now, what is the church's position on this particular matter? The Supreme Court of Kenya on 27th of January this year ruled that in divorce cases, each partner should leave the marriage with property equivalent to their individual contribution on their union.
If I was, I'm not talking as a Christian. You know, I'm trying to look at as
Christianity
now
aside.
I have put Christianity
Have
there.
you put your pastorship aside?
Now I'm talking like I'm thinking about assuming she has come. Now your side. She has come with her water. I have come with my water. Then we have put it in one bucket. Now separating the water, it becomes hard. Actually, one of the covenants that there is in marriage is what we call the salt covenant, where the salt, the one comes with the salt, comes, mix it. If you can't separate it, then it becomes very hard to separate that thing. I would agree if it was matrimony, you know, something that you inherited from your parents, you can say, hii nyumba nilipata kutoka kwa baba na mama, so this one is mine. But now, two guys have worked together. This woman every day wakes up and makes tea for the gentleman to go to work very hard, and in the evening, the guy comes and says, I've bought a plot. Now, simply because the plot is written in the name of the gentleman, the wife goes away empty. I think that one is a bit unacceptable, because there are so many women who are working hard to make sure that kids are going to school, to make sure that this man comes back peaceful. Because wengine wanafanya kazi ya kama ya polisi.
They have their own sense of contribution to the
in fact, a bigger contribution. Do you know most men who are married, hata kama wamekosana na bibi nyumbani, they say they enjoy more peace knowing that I'll go home to a cup of tea. Hata kama wamekosana.
Clarice, do you support
I believe the law is very dynamic.
Yes.
Years back, we would look at contribution in terms of not only financial contribution, would look at the contribution that the woman makes. But even as we look at the contribution that is made by the woman who is the mother, who is the homekeeper, we cannot really quantify this contribution. So there's a lot of imbalances where contribution is concerned. But times have changed. Women are working. Women delegate roles. You see, there was an imbalance a long time ago because men delegated their roles. You no longer do plumbing. You no longer farm. You no longer milk cows, so you delegate roles. Women, on the other hand, did not delegate roles. Actually, I was talking to my friends the other day when this ruling was delivered. Most of them were for it, and they are women, because we know we bring in as much financial contribution to the home as much as the man, if not more.
What if you're a housewife? You do not bring financial contributions, but you're a housewife. You're the one who ensures that this man looks pretty for work. You are contributing something. What about that housewife?
That is why you have, I think there's the issue of empowerment that comes in play for any woman that gets into a marriage, I believe. Times are changing. You cannot stay at home and expect. That is the truth. You know, you're laughing, and the laws are made by men.
Now, in the case where this woman is not empowered to go for business, ako nyumbani, ama bwanake amemwambia wewe sitaki ufanye kazi, you stay at home. Is this woman going to be left out of this inheritance? You know,
the problem is this woman that stays at home will not even be in a position to pay legal fees to represent her in the event of a divorce. So you see, it's losing either way. There is no advocate that would take up your matter pro bono and defend you all the way to the Supreme Court like the previous case. These were properly managed people. So by the end of the day, in as much as we say there is a housewife and what have you, I think it's good to inform yourself. The same way we have premarital counseling, I advocate for counseling where property is concerned. I believe parties should see a lawyer before they settle down so that they know what their rights are where property is concerned. It's always advisable to own property jointly, especially in our scenario where most people cohabit without registering marriages. So there's a lot of imbalances that come at play that are not one size fits all. So tomorrow the Supreme Court may be faced with different facts and depart from its present ruling.
Let me get your view, Dr. on the matter.
Thank you so much. First, thank you so much to Wakili, but I will differ with Wakili where she says that no advocate can defend a lady and present her pro bono. What I say is that God willing soon I'll be joining the bar because I've already concluded my law degree. I've finished KSL. I'm just trying to finish up some exams. After that, actually, I will admit and commit myself to assist all ladies in this country who are going problems and go to court pro bono. I will do that, God willing. And another case I will work on that is the issue of children protection, and the third one, mosques which are suffering. Those three, Wakili, I'll tell you, because since I finished my degree, I've assisted more than 1,000 people in my office pro bono.
That is...
And counseling also. When it comes to matters counseling and its family issues, many times I do it pro bono. If you have something, I will take. But if you tell me, Daktari, my husband And this problem actually is amongst Muslims. You know, in Islam, and this is a matter I'll be very happy if the Qadi courts, we should see some amendments in the Qadi court issues.
Okay.
I'll tell you one thing. Muslim women are highly suffering. You know, many Muslims, if you divorce your wife, she's only entitled for 3 months maintenance. You can imagine if you married each other and you are living in Pumwani, or you are living in Shaurimoyo, or you are living in Kibra, and then God blesses the two of you together. Then the husband has flats in the entire Nairobi, has houses in Lavington. Then he divorces you, you go back to Kibera, to your mother's home with nothing. This has to change. This has to change. And in Islam, housewife is also part of work. In Islam, being a housewife, you are considered to be contributing to the family 50% or even higher. You are taking care of the husband, you are taking care of the children, you are the one making sure that this husband goes to work. So if possible, when divorce comes, the wife actually should take more, especially if she has children, especially the house. I always recommend that it is the husband who should move out of the house and leave the house with the wife and the children. That has been my stand, and I will stand by that. And we are here to assist all women who are suffering. There are so many.
Let me ask all of you this question. Do you believe in 50-50 division of property?
Personally, I believe in it.
50-50.
But we need to look at other factors. You know, in Islam, we are allowed to marry up to 4 wives. So if I have 4 wives, then the ratio now will reduce because of taking care of the other women. So you take your share, you leave me with the others to share. So it will be a ratio of, we are now 5. Everyone will take at least a portion of the 5th.
20%.
Oh, I don't envy you.
but that one, let me say, I'll be like pastor. That one now, I'm not looking at Islamic Sharia per se.
Okay.
I'm talking as an advocate. of human rights.
All right.
Yes.
Let me get from you, Pastor.
My view.
50-50?
No, I believe
in it?
I believe. I think, number one, if you got into the relationship together, because you can never weigh. Like now, for example, you cannot be able to weigh your hours that you came over here. Like now, this interview, it's very intensive. Now, somebody at home may be saying that guy is getting famous simply because he's on TV, and he doesn't know that you have probably spent so much time researching on that. Anasema tu jamaa anauliza tu watu maswali alafu and you are contributing to those stats. somebody is getting him somewhere.
Umedharau kazi yangu.
No, tunasema somebody anaweza dharau, anasema kazi. Anasema tu jamaa tu anachekaga tu kwa show, anapewa maji pale hivi, anauliza maswali, but he doesn't know that there is a lot of research that has gone into you sitting down here and picking the minds of others. Now, on the other hand, you may go home and you find your wife sitting on the couch watching some Niger movie, but you don't realize the kind of work that she has done in that house. Iyo kuweka sofa set ikiwa sawa, iyo bedroom litoko kaenda, maybe there are some cockroaches she had to deal with in that house that particular day. There is a lot of intensity that goes to that home. I'll give an example of a lady, a guy who was criticizing the wife that she does nothing. Then she decided to do nothing for 3 days. Akapata nguo za ndani ziko hapo pale anawekaga, masocks zimekaa pale. Within 3 days the guy was like, go back to work, you're really working. So we cannot be able to quantify 50-50. But I would say, I think that would be the best way. Kama mnawachana, we patia bibi 50%, ujamaa chukua 50%. Na watu waache panganga.
Okay. Okay. You speak as an individual or as a man of God?
As both.
Clarice?
I'm going to take a different perspective, because most of my clients, it's the women that pay the bills and run the homes. So I definitely go on in order of contribution. I would not go for 50-50. I'm telling you, we are moving into a different, and that is why I'm talking about women empowerment, more than women staying at home and hoping for 50-50. 50-50 cannot work, because the women are the ones that are bringing home the bacon.
Wow.
Yes.
But
so,
now, you know, I'm looking at that. Wacha tu now unaenda 50 when the ladies at home and demanding for 50, the man works so hard and he comes up and says, okay, I give you the 50. Now the woman here now brings the bacon, and because she's bringing the bacon, and probably the guy now doesn't have a job, but he's taking care of the plumbing, the electricity, kupanda juu, kuripia mabati. Now suddenly he's told, you are house husband, you are useless, you can't get my 50. But when I'm working 100% and coming home to a wife who is staying at home, then she gets my 50. I don't know.
I do not think men no longer do any plumbing in this era. People pay for these services. But that as it may, I think we should come from a point where we seek to empower women. He has indicated that once he is admitted to the bar, he will do a lot of pro bono. Around the last time I was there in 2019, I did a lot of pro bono. I almost had to go for therapy. You see, because now if we do not encourage women to empower themselves and earn an income and bring something home, in the event of a divorce, they will suffer the most. That is the reality. So how many women are we going to help? How many children are we going to help? Husbands die. So what happens in the event a husband is dead and you're a housewife? You see, we have to seek solutions instead of just wanting to give people freebies where legal services are concerned and what have you. Okay, let us empower each other. And I think the law is progressive. That is why it is saying in according to, the property will be distributed according to contribution. I think I agree with that. Because in the event, let's say a wife is a housewife, he has 5 wives, then distributing this among 5 wives, I think it's really unfair because the woman runs the home.
All right.
Thank you so much, Wakili. First, we agree that the maximum is 4 wives, not 5. The second thing, I think that there should be a lot of public participation as far as this law is concerned. True. Because of culture. You know, you might speak this if you come maybe from central Kenya, where now women are highly progressed in a way, but you go to Northeastern, you go to Coast, where, as we speak, many of the women there are housewives. And you look at a man who has almost 1,000 cows or camels. But those cows are being cared for by the wife. So this is where the challenge comes in. You find you go to the Maasai land also, you go to Turkana. So this is a discussion which actually should have a lot of discussion, a lot of negotiation.
There are so many dynamics around it.
Because if we just talk of 50-50, then there are many communities which will suffer.
Wow. Clarice, you mentioned one particular point, and this is my final question, because I'm told time is not on our side. We should continue with this next week.
This needs more time.
This needs more time. Needs more time. But you mentioned something. In the event where a man dies, what happens in regards to mother's inheritance to the family? What is the position of the church, Pastor Julius?
I believe the way it's supposed to be, when a man dies, the inheritance automatically goes to the woman and the children who are left behind.
And what about those who are from the second marriage?
Now that is where again we have to look at the balance. Number one, I actually say, if you are going to marry a second wife, you need to consider what you had gotten with the first wife.
Okay.
So that now the contribution, as we are saying, the contribution of the second wife, amekuja akapata mkona 500 million. Now she comes from there, maybe with that 500 million, I think should not go to her, because you labored with your wife and with the support of your children.
Clarice, let me come to you on that.
You talked of us. Ram, I think the issue here is we are not talking about what actually happens on the ground. I believe in the event of death, no one considers what someone acquired with the first wife. There'll be a lot of wrangles in that family. But I believe where the law is concerned, we have to look at was the second wife legally married? Because how is this second wife coming in if the marriage was monogamous? You have to prove dependency. There are a lot of issues. I think if we do not have time, we do not have to delve into it, because the succession is a whole different...
That's a whole thing.
Yes,
and that's why we're talking about marriage, divorce, and inheritance.
Yes.
Yeah? That's a whole spectrum.
It's an entirely different spectrum. You have to prove dependency. I think children can benefit from a diseased person's estate, but if you're a wife, I think you have to prove that you are a wife recognized under the law.
Just briefly, Sharia law in regards to that particular issue?
Thank you so much. I think as far as inheritance is concerned, Islam is the best in this globally because it is automatic. There is an automatic calculator that if a husband dies, then a wife gets a quota if she has no children. If she has children, then the calculation changes.
And in the case where you have other women, like you have 4 wives?
When that happens, then the calculation differs again. What I must say, my brother, I think it will have been better if we have the issue of inheritance in itself, because it's a very huge area.
We are going to pick that next week.
But realize that in Islam, even if a cabinet secretary dies or a president dies, the matter is solved in only 3 days. Because it's automatic. How much do you have? Everyone, a boy gets 2 times the daughter.
Thank you, Dr.
So unfair.
No, it's not fair. We'll come and discuss this and realize that it's not fair. Because the lady gets from the father.
I will not allow you to proceed.
I wanted to ask him a question. In the event that a Muslim man has 4 wives and children, is there ever a possibility that there's another outgrower out there?
And we will find out about that next week. We will find out about that. And that is what brings us to the end of this morning conversation right here on marriage, divorce, and inheritance. A big thanks to Pastor Julius Kimani. Thank you so much for coming.
Asante.
A big thanks to Clarice, Mmbone, Osore. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ram. And
Dr. Hassan, Kinyua, Sheikh. Karibu sana.
Asante.
And I'm grateful to each and every one of you for tuning in. We proceed with this conversation again next week. Remember, we have not touched on so many things. This is so deep. Divorce can be discussed on its own, inheritance on its own. But anyway, God will give us grace. I hope that you've learned something. Let's take a short break. We'll be back with more. Doreen Arang is coming back right here on GMK. My name is Aguko. It has been a pleasure.